Hello, welcome. Welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. And if you like fashion, today's lecture is going to be very interesting. Oftentimes, we don't meet the people behind the scenes who make fashion go. But this man was a towering figure. And even though he had an illustrious career, he had a horrible end to his life. And I thought, you know what, let's recognize him. And today, he was definitely Royal Black and Elite in the fashion industry, and his story deserves to be told. His name was Andre Leon Talley. So I thank everybody for joining me today. Hello, Royalists. I hope today's going wonderful for you. And if you're the first time joining in, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, listen, everybody, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. It pushes the video through the algorithm. And will you please leave me a comment? I'd like to know that you're watching and that you're enjoying what we're learning here on our historical channel. So let's get into our lecture. Now, Andre was a very tall man. He was about 6'6", and he weighed over 300 pounds. Now, they say that Anna Wintour, who was the editor of Vogue, and we're going to learn about a lot about Vogue and kind of how he really became famous, did an intervention to try to get him to lose some weight. But he did. Over the years, he did start losing weight, and he tried to take care of himself. But the most important thing as a fashion designer is that he faced a lot of equality on the runway. And in his book, he pulled the covers back. He wrote a book called Trenches, and he told the whole entire story. So it was very interesting. Now, Vogue magazine was founded in 1892 by Arthur Baldwin Turner. And let me tell you, every fashion person who ever has done anything in fashion, they want to be on the cover of Vogue. So can you imagine having a career as an editor and as a black man being in that space? So I thought this was going to be so interesting, and indeed it was. Andre was born on October the 16th, 1948 in Washington, D.C. But he wasn't raised in Washington. He was actually raised in Carolina. And, it was really racist down there at that time in 1948. His mother's name was Alma, and his father's name was William. But that's not who raised him. His grandmother actually was the one who raised him. Now, there's no indication as to why, but Benny Frances Davis was her name. And Benny was a very high class woman, according to Andre. He said that's really where he learned all about luxury, dressing well, and style. So he really thought a whole lot of his grandmother. He really loved her. But now, what really solidified his love for fashion was when he was 9 or about 10 years old. He visited a local library and he found a Vogue magazine. So, like I said, it'd been around since 1892. And so it was probably really in a place where it had all the pictures, all the stars at the time, and he began his career. Well, let's say he graduated from high school, and when he graduated from high school, he went to North Carolina Central University, where he obtained his bachelor's degree in 1970 and his master's in 1972. Now, his degree was in the Bachelor's of Arts in French Literature. So he was cultured. To be from Carolina, I bet he escaped in those magazines. And when he got a chance to go to college, he truly escaped. And this man traveled the world. Now, Andre had a big personality to go along with that 6'6" frame and that 300 pounds. And so, with that, well, at the time, he wasn't as big then, but with that, it opened the door for him. Now, he had an unpaid apprenticeship. Now, the thing about this unpaid thing, you'll see this kind of theme kind of go throughout his career, and it showed up big time at the end of his life. So, this unpaid apprenticeship was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1974. He worked for Diana Vreeland, and she was a Vogue editor. She really liked him. And so, for this reason, she was able to get him a job and to work at the Andy Warhol's factory, big time way back then. And he also worked for a magazine called Interview. But he only made $50 a week, so $200 a month. And he probably was working hard, but family stepped alongside him and helped him during this time. So this is when he was getting his feet wet and his career off the ground. Now, By 1975, it was time for him to move on. And in his position, he really leveraged those connections that he made in that working for Andy Warhol and working for the museum. And it opened up a door for him to write for Women's Wear Daily. And he became the Paris bureau chief from 1975 to 1980. You know how talented this man must have been? Mm. He also worked for the New York Times Ebony, but he found his lifelong fashion calling when he became the fashion news director for Vogue magazine from 1983 to 1987. He then became the magazine's first creative director, a job he held from 1989 to 1995. So he had really had an illustrious career. It was growing. At that point, he had been with them for 12 years. He worked with the top black designers and white designers. It didn't matter. He was talented on either side. And the black top models. So he really opened doors for them and really made a way for them. He had a voice with inside the talent, with inside the fashion industry. But in 1995, he left his role as the creative director. Now, there was some scuttlebutt around town, allegedly, that he had fallen out with Anna Winter, who's the editor, has been the editor forever, editor in chief of Vogue. And so these rumors were swirling, and some of the scuttlebutt was that he was not being paid equally as other people. And there was no diversity within the fashion industry. And because Vogue had such a large voice, a loud voice, a large audience, he felt they should have opened doors for people. And later on, allegedly, Anna agreed. She said that she had not done enough in the way of diversity. So he left his role with Vogue and went to work for W Magazine in Paris. So Paris was his little spot. They liked him in Paris. And he did that until 1998. Now, all those rumors were kind of going on behind the scenes, but I guess they kind of patched things up and he returned. And it was still the same year, and he returned as the editor at large. Now, in 2008, Talley actually dressed Michelle Obama for the cover of Vogue. And can you believe he also dressed Melania Trump when she married Donald Trump? So he was really a fashion icon. He dressed people and he held some of the highest positions within the fashion industry. Now, we know him for his capes. He would dress, as you can see here. And so he said that the top designers sold his clothes, people like Tom Ford, Dapper Dan, and Karl Lagerfeld. But do you all know, despite all of his vast connections and all of the money that he made, supposedly, and I'm using air quotes because when you find this out, it's just wow. In 2020, he wrote this book I told you about, Chiffon Trenches. Well, he shared that the fashion industry was extremely, uh, he was paid unfairly. So he would always get paid less than other editors. And during an interview, he showed just how much less. He said that he knew of an editor and he made about $300,000 a year. And then he would do appearances and go to other shows. So he made, at some points in his life, he was a millionaire, but Vogue paid him 300,000 according to him. And he found out another editor, a white woman, was getting paid $900,000 a year. So it was a $600,000 difference in what he was getting paid and what someone of a different race was getting paid. And he was way bigger. Every time you went to a show, he sat right next to Anna Winter. So it's sad to know that this is supposed to be your friend. You've been working for them since 1983, and you're finding out that you're getting paid $600,000 less than other editors, allegedly. Now, at the end of his life, he was living in this big 11-bedroom home, and unfortunately, he faced some financial challenges. Now, these financial challenges found him in court, and the person who owned the property wanted to evict him. Can you believe it? He had been written all that time. He didn't get married, he had no children, so it was just him living in this big 11-bedroom house. but his money had dried up. And during interviews, he would come out and say no one was helping him financially. So even though he knew all these millionaires, no one stepped in and tried to help him pay the rent or tried to help him when he got ill or anything like that. So that was really sad to hear, especially after he had done so much for the fashion industry. Now, some say there were people who did step up, and some say, people say they have money, but maybe they don't have the money that they say they have. So I don't know why he wasn't helped or that he felt allegedly that he was not helped, but for whatever reason, he wasn't. Now, right before he passed, however, he came to a kind of deal with the owner of the property and he was able to stay. But unfortunately, right after he made the deal, he passed away of heart attack in White Plains, New York on January the 18th, 2022 at 73 years old. Some say that he had COVID, but that's not confirmed. Now, tributes poured in from all over the country because he, again, was an icon in the fashion industry. I hope that you enjoyed today's lecture, learning a little bit more about Andre Leon Talley. Did you know had you ever heard of him? I had always seen him. He was on American Top Model. He was a judge one time, so he was on there for a season. So I had seen him on things, but I didn't know he had started the industry so long ago, that he had been in Paris so long. But I was saddened to hear about how his life ended in being in such financial turmoil toward the end of his life. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Now remember, my lectures are for entertainment and educational purposes only, and the Fair Act use is in effect. Now, my resources were Andre Talley defined style on his own terms. This was an article in The Atlantic. The Gospel According to Leon and the Chiffon Trenches. Now, if you want to continue to learn, y'all click down below. I have some great videos just for you to continue to learn about the Royal Black and Elite throughout history. And also, leave me a comment. Don't forget. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. Thanks for watching.